You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis is brought to you by...
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.
You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations with Kurtis. I am your host, Kurtis Cross, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to get into a great conversation, but first, I want to thank our sponsors, Gene the Barber and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks, that's Kurtis with a K, on Instagram and Twitter, and www.kurtistalks.com. Also, take a listen to our other podcasts, Crosstalk, the Kurtis and Paula Show, a lifestyle, love, marriage, and parenthood podcast. You'll hear all about the day-to-day life of me and Paula. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, a local and national sports podcast hosted by me, along with coaches Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. Also, there's Ramblin' Teachers, a local teacher talk podcast hosted by a few friends of the Crosstalk family. And last but certainly not least, the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. Both of these podcasts are hosted by Big T and Blue Knight. You'll hear stories from truckers, 911 calls, law enforcement officers, and a host of interesting guests. All of these podcasts can be found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcast content. Once again, welcome to Crosstalk, this is not the Kurtis and Paula Show, this is Conversations with Kurtis. And I'd like to introduce someone once again. This is my main man right here. I thank you for joining today's conversation. Today, I'd like to welcome to the conversation a gentleman who I've known for some years now. While our professional relationship got off to a little bit of a rocky start, we've been smooth sailing ever since, and I have Andrew Roby to thank for placing myself and my team in some incredible company over the years. Andrew is the chief storyteller, creative brain, and so much more behind Andrew Roby Events. I could go on and on, but I will yield the floor to Andrew, so please help me welcome Andrew Roby to the table. Andrew, how's it going today, sir?
Hey, Kurtis, it is awesome. It is a privilege and honor to actually be on this show with you. I thank you for the invitation. I am excited about the conversation. So thank you so much.
We're going to have it. I'm welcoming you to the table. First, I'm going to tell on myself. When we worked together some years ago, our first event did not go so well. You hired us for an outdoor event. I believe it was a community exercise event. And it was windy that day. My DJ had some trouble with the electricity. The wind actually blew over one of the speakers. I want to publicly thank you for allowing us to make that up to you. And to sound cliche, the rest is history. Do you remember that day?
Yeah. So that was like 2018, 2019, I think. It hasn't been 2017 or 2018. And yeah, I remember that. And it's so crazy because, this was our first time working with the client for an outdoor public event. So it was a major thing for us. And so this was our first time, bringing you on and working with you all. And so I was like, oh my God, what is going on? This is not the first, impression I want to have for this, this outdoor event with they had a couple hundred people out there exercising and all that. So it was crazy first start, I will admit, but you came around, was able to fix it. We got it done. So I was happy.
And here we are. Yes.
Here we are.
So let's get into your history. Tell our listeners about Andrew Roby and your path to this space, and who is Andrew Roby?
Yeah, so I would say that I'm still discovering myself. Honestly, this pandemic has allowed me to have time to myself, to be quiet, to be silent, and to understand who I am and where I want to head into the future being. And I think over the past couple of years, we started. I've been doing events for the past 14 years, and I started, in my transition out of the Army, volunteering to be able to do in-person events and all sorts of things, but it was fundraisers, helping single service members actually get out of the barracks to find something positive and constructive to do in the community. And I did that, and I was like, this is something phenomenal. I really love what we're doing. It's fast paced. I get a chance to see so many people, so many, hats to wear, that I think this is something that I want to do. So I got out of the Army and started planning events, and it was a rough start, just how we started. It was rough, because I am this kid, out of the military, trying to figure out how to actually plan big events, and I was planning, these small house parties and things like that, trying to get my bearings, my legs for planning actual events. And just trying to navigate through that event industry was really weird because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a mentor. The networking aspect of it was really tough because I was coming from the Army, jumping into events and not really having that branding and that awareness that I have today. And so I forced myself to keep doing it. I forced myself to make connections and meet people and build my reputation so that way I could actually go out and land clients. And that has happened. That took me years to do. It wasn't an overnight. I'm not an overnight success. I still feel like I'm still growing and still learning. And even to this day, we've planned hundreds of weddings. We've planned thousands of corporate events, over these past years, and I'm grateful for every last one of them. So it's still new to me as far as creativity and trying to think outside the box and customize experiences for people. So yeah, I'm still a student of this game.
But that creativity and it still being new to you can only happen because you're not going to be complacent. This is the Andrew Roby experience. While you've probably defined that experience, I'm not so sure that experience has a bunch of boundaries. You're willing to go where that creative space takes you, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I hate being siloed into particular concepts and ideas. One thing I try not to do is to spend a lot of time on things like Pinterest or Instagram, because doing that can really cause you to focus on one skill set or one design type or one experience. I really like to delve into so many various platforms and avenues to figure out what I'm not actually doing that I could be doing, or how to reshape and recreate events and experiences. I was talking to Paul C. Brunson, who is one of the people I admire. I've been a part of his mastermind, and he calls me the Diddy of remixes, because I'm always trying to reinvent an experience, a concept, or something, because I think that's what people want. People, they settle for the trends because that's what they see, until somebody can actually come in and give them something completely different that they actually deserve to have.
Right. No, absolutely. And so when we talk about, the Army, when we talk about how you came to be, that wasn't always here in DC. Tell us about your travels.
Yeah, so I'm from Miami. And so I left Miami in 2001. I spent, after my senior year in high school, I spent a year, actually a couple of 6 months, trying to figure out what was I going to do.
Okay.
I had no idea. And so I decided, because I had experience in ROTC, which is a high school program for military, I decided to enlist. I got into the Army, and my first duty station was in Germany. I spent 3.5 years living abroad, getting my degree, serving my country, learning German, eating great food, traveling internationally, because little did I know, it's much easier to travel once you're already in Europe to go to other locations
Right.
than it is to go from, the States to, different parts of the world. So I spent a good time there traveling to so many countries. I think that now I'm over 30 countries that I've been able to go and understand culture and just really, love the people that I experienced. And then after that, I came to DC. DC was my next duty station, and I spent from 2003 to 2009 in the Army, and in some cases, but not by choice, still traveling because of deployments.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and so I was deployed. My longest deployment was to the Horn of Africa. We were there for 15 months. That turned from a 9-month commitment to a year, and then to 15 months, and then I came back and dealing with PTSD and anxiety and anger management and all that kind of stuff. Following these deployments, that was the reason why I really decided to transition. But yeah, I've lived my life traveling. I think traveling has allowed me to find myself, and then also to understand creativity, to understand diversity, and to understand how different cultures experience events in itself.
Okay. So, and that plays into how you produce now. But why the events business? What sparked inside of you that let you know this is where I need to be?
So for a long time, when I first got to DC, I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and on my wall, I found in this store this quote that says, "We do not remember words, we remember moments," something like that, and that stuck with me for a great deal of time, and I sat with that, and I asked myself, well, what is a moment? What creates a moment that then creates a memory that we never forget?
Okay.
And when I think about moments, I think about the events, the experiences that I have, whether it's with friends, whether it's a birthday party, whether I'm traveling, whether I'm going to someone's wedding or something like that. And I thought about it and I said, well, can I actually replicate that in another fashion, another form, to have the same feeling I get from events? And I couldn't do that.
Okay.
And because I was so infatuated by what was being developed through events, I said to myself, this is something I want to have for the rest of my life. I want to be a part of these experiences, no matter how big or small they were. If I was able to actually facilitate them and then participate in them in some fashion, then I will be able to fulfill this need that I have. Like it's like, always being hungry and eating and eating and eating, but never being full. And that's how I feel working in this industry. I've yet to be full from the work that we do. And that's why I do this.
So best of both worlds. You get to produce the events and you get to participate in the events. You're double dipping. That's what you're doing.
And I'm okay with that.
As we've worked together over the years, I've witnessed you evolve into much more than an event planner. Here are the cliche words, storyteller and all this other stuff, but it's more than someone emails Andrew Roby, I need you to plan this, baby shower for me. I need you to plan this wedding for me. We're talking about concepts. We're talking about ideas. We're not talking about someone who gathers vendors, helps you sign contracts and say, hey, you got to pay this guy on this day, and let me schedule when all the vendors are coming. You do concept. You're looking at experiences. We're going to get into that in a minute, but talk to me about that. So you've gone from, you said birthday parties. That's cool. But, I don't want to say it yet, but I got to say, you and I have been at the top of the Spy Museum. I mean, we're not talking about just parties. Like, where has this journey taken you? It went from those birthday parties. When did your mind just like blow up and say, there's so much more to this?
So I don't even think I'm there yet. I don't think that I've reached that point where
there's more? You've got more?
That's what I feel like in my soul. I feel like there's so much more to come. And yeah, you're right. I did start off with some very small things, these birthday parties where it's just a handful of people, all you're doing is just, getting food and a cake and it's just some minor stuff.
Right.
But then, I did not want to find myself where I was that type of planner that was just the logistics. And I loathe that. And I know that there's plenty of planners that are out there that focus solely on the logistics, the coordinating, the planning, and that's it. But for me, it goes back to the fact that I want to be a part of these experiences. And the only way that I can do that is by creating them, by digging into my client's conscious and figuring out what they're really asking for, and then turning those ideas and thoughts into events and into weddings. And when I can see people having fun and mouths being dropped as they enter into rooms and things like that, I can't buy that. I can't buy that. And so I don't know any other way to do that. And so I'm constantly chasing after doing more of that, getting bigger, getting better, landing a client that wants a bigger concept and idea than I previously did. So I'm always in pursuit of that.
And, I've witnessed those moments in the times that we've worked together, and there've been, plenty of those. There's that moment before you present the backdrop to your client or the couple. And those are some anxious moments for me as your DJ. I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's getting ready to bring the bride and groom in. And they've got to have that jaw-dropping wow moment that this is what we talked about 14 months ago. And it's got to show up in Pentagon City. It's got to show up downtown DC. It's got to show up at the Spy Museum. And hopefully, we've met that mark. But I know you set the bar. You do set the bar. And I have to personally publicly thank you, because you've allowed us to push that envelope a little bit. What can we create? I can't bring the same, wireless LED lights that I bring every other time. Andrew needs something different for this couple. He needs something different for this corporation. So let's talk team, actually. The industry has recognized your success. The public has done the same, as witnessed by your continued success. But none of this happens without a team supporting your vision, your principles, and the direction you forecast for the business. Let me pause parenthetically to say, you do a great job with your team, because when I walk in the building, they know who I am. You've already prepped them for my arrival. But tell us about your team and their importance to how all of this works.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, I'm glad that this is a topic of discussion, because without them, I am not me. And I give every ounce of credit to Dana, Danielle, Delante, and Frederick, because without them, I cannot do the work that I do. They keep me grounded. We pray for each other. We constantly are in communication with each other. We talk about each other's families and our goals, even outside of the event realm, and really just build each other up. There's relationships with them that I didn't know that I would have with my teammates. And I love them because they are able to, when it's go time, they know exactly what to do. They know the standards of the company, everything from how, I like things to be folded, or how I like linen, how I like centerpieces, how I like light. They know all of that, and I love them for that. But they also challenge me. They also say, well, let's do this, or let's change it up this way. So it's always a give and take with them. And I know that I can count on them, whether they're doing an event by themselves or we're doing an event collectively, that I can count on them to execute without question. And they're irreplaceable. Like, they really are irreplaceable. And I appreciate every last one of them. And they bring something unique to the table individually.
I've got some staff that's been with me 15 years or more, and they are completely irreplaceable. I remember on an event we did not too long ago. I mean, I go in there, I'm setting up my gear and all that, and your staff is hard at work. I mean, I'm seeing boxes of this come out and boxes of that come out. And, I would say that the best compliment I can give you with regard to that, none of them seemed like they were uptight or worried. I think you set the table so that your staff can be confident. They know what the task is, but they're not looking over their shoulder saying, I hope Andrew likes this. I think they have your concept. in their headspace and they know what to execute. And I think that just goes to preparation.
Yeah,
I think
thank you.
To preparation.
So, I may not always tell them that. So I hope they don't watch this because I want them to keep working.
All right. So now you and I have personally worked some great events, from wedding celebrations, and I just mentioned Pentagon City, to unique events in downtown DC. We've opened the International Spy Museum, and I'm talking, they still weren't even ready for public, right?
No, they were still closed.
I mean, there was like one elevator we could use because everything wasn't ready. So we worked so much. What is it that lights that fire for you? What events challenge you the most, and or which events put you in your best creative space?
Wow. So I think the events that challenge me the most are the ones that are focused on the guests, the attendees, and what their journey will look like, all of the touch points that they have. And I think that, and I'll put it into two examples. So with weddings, most times the concentration is on the couple itself. Right. So it can be a little difficult to try to build an experience for their clients if they're solely concentrating on themselves. So when I can get a couple that can say, you know what, I just want to have a good time and I want all of my guests to have a good time with us. Those are the types of clients I love, that pushes me and puts me in that zone to be more creative, because I then have to worry about the two people getting married and also all of their guests versus just worried about the two people. And then for my corporate side, I think any client that says, you know what, I don't want their traditional fundraiser or cocktail style event. I actually want some activation that's included with that. Or I want to do, just things that are outside of the norm that people don't normally experience. Those are the things that I go after, but because they challenge me. They challenge me to stop doing the traditional stuff and to focus on doing something that I'm like nervous about. I have to study it, and then I have to, execute what it is that they're asking me to do. Those are the things I love.
Wow. Well, and I've seen you do it. Now, for you, it wasn't enough just to be an event planner. Over the past couple of years, I've seen you get more into the education and training side of the events business. Why is it important to you to educate and broaden the knowledge base for other entrepreneurs, others in business, in the events industry? Why is that important to you? Why is education so important to you?
Yeah, when I started out in events, I wasn't educated. I wish I had someone to say, Andrew, you know what? You need to slow down. I know you want to be able to do all these events, but this is what you need to learn first. This is the foundation you actually need to build. I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about pitching. I knew nothing about design. I knew nothing about pricing or building a great team of vendors, or even trying to not do everything myself. I knew nothing about that. And as I went through, my struggle, I saw that a lot of other people were struggling, and particularly people that looked like me, people who were Black and brown that were trying to get that leg up into the industry and actually be sustainable well past that 2-year or 3-year mark where, SBA says most companies die out, at that time. So the best way that I could do that is by taking my experience and turning that into teachable lessons. And that's what I've been doing. I've been taking the opportunity to actually be a coach, to be a mentor, but also do a lot of the style shoot workshops and design workshops that we've been doing to teach people the things that I wish somebody taught me when I started.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And in that educational piece, I've seen you from time to time, be it, a post or be it, part of your blog or what have you. You are a proponent of people getting their value. Yep. And making sure that they absent of that, hold on, let me pause for a second. Before they can even get their value, they must know their value.
Yep.
They must know what they're worth. And you've written some, I won't say controversial pieces, but you've written some pieces that have pushed some buttons because you are willing to challenge the person and say, well, just because it's, someone thinks a virtual event, which you and I have both done, well, why am I paying this for a virtual event? I would pay that for, and they don't, our clients, we have to educate our clients as well. They don't understand quite often the work that goes into what we do. So you have your event over here. Let's say we're just going to say Marriott downtown DC. And then you have your event over here, same sort of event, but on a virtual platform. The work is not, it's not that much different. So why are you willing to push those buttons and educate not only the event professionals, the creatives, but why are you willing to push those buttons in terms of educating clients as well? Because, if we get X amount of dollars, let's say it's $2,500 to do some production that I do, it's not automatically going to be $200 because it's virtual. There's a studio here, right? There's a staff that has to support it. Yeah. You're willing to push those buttons and not everyone is. Why?
Yeah, so I think people are scared of having conversations. I think that I don't understand why that is. I've always been an upfront person. And I think, being in the military has even pushed that even more to the forefront. But I think that what happens is that we find ourselves so timid behind instructing and educating people on what the standard is, that because we fail to do that, they begin to say, okay, well, this is what I've always been doing. And I don't want to be the person that goes along because of what you've always been doing. I want to be able to teach you what the standard is. And if I feel that the standard is lacking, whether it's for my colleagues in the event industry or because of the ignorance of potential clients, then I feel like it's my responsibility as an educator to make sure that people are aware of what that standard is. And I think even now we still have issues with various standards within the event industry that is in conflict with what clients and potential clients think of things. For instance, pricing. I think that the structure of pricing of what we pay vendors is completely obscured because clients will say, oh, well, this is what I thought you should pay because I read this blog and they said that this is what, people in your field should be making. Or this is the list of things that you should be providing to me. And I don't want to be siloed into what you read on a blog or what this Facebook group has told you I should be doing. That's not what I align to. So I really want to push the envelope and get people out of those typical mindsets and to begin to really explore vast possibilities of events and what their roles are in those events and in the weddings that we see. So I don't like to be a part of the crowd. I want to be able to have those tough conversations, but I feel like when I do have these conversations, that is out of love, it's with grace. And I just want to make sure that people are aware of the way that they're thinking is not actually the right way to think.
Well, and that's the thing. And you got to compare apples to apples. And a blog that you read in Raleigh, North Carolina for an event planner is different than on Long Island. And it's different than it is in Albany, New York, or, Santa Barbara, California. I mean, I get it. I definitely get it. And, I think, and this is, not to talk tough with, our clients or those who are listening who may be clients at some point. The problem is if you need to get 4 tires for your car, you know what they should cost. You've bought tires your whole life. No one has hired an Andrew Roby, or very few people have hired an Andrew Roby. So when they see, Jane Smith or John Smith, well, they charge me X amount of dollars for this. Why are you so? Because it's not an Andrew Roby experience. It's not a Kurtis Cross, Weddings by Kurtis Cross experience. And so we're not talking apples to apples. We're not talking about them buying, this. They're not talking about them buying this remote control, which is the same at the Best Buy and the Walmart, because Andrew Roby's not Walmart, and that's not where we're trying to be. But you certainly push that envelope. You have asked those tough questions, and you have I won't say forced, but you've heavily encouraged the event professionals to get their worth and to know that. And it's not because we're money hungry. Let's not say that. But there were years ago when I would think about what I was charging for a wedding. And then one day I decided to put together, log my hours. And I put in 100 hours for every wedding. It's not just 5 hours at Pentagon City. It's the 2 hours that I spoke to the client. It's the 4 hours I spoke to Paula and Chrissy when we were planning. It's the 3 hours over 10 months that I spend talking to you on the phone. It's the emails. It's, me waking up in the middle of the night saying, you know what? If I was planning out my mix set for, John and Stacy, this is probably what I'd want to do. And I get up and I write down what I'm going to do. It's the time I spend in the studio, mixing and practicing and all of that, because on game day, there are no mistakes. It's, going to the warehouse, and it's my man Salat, who's one of our great roadies who plans all this equipment. These days, it's sanitizing all the equipment. There's so much more than 7 to 11 on a Saturday night,
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that, part of that is this is what I have experienced, right? Is that everyone believes that gig workers and those in the event and wedding industry, for some reason, are not aligned to the corporate side, or, where you go to work and you work from 9 to 5, that you should be paid from 9 to 5.
Right.
But that shift. And I think that still has not, changed, pushed over to the event and wedding industry where, well, I am working these hours. I need to be paid for these hours, and that my payment is not solely indicative of the actual day. You know what I mean? Is that, as you explained, is that these are all the things that I need to be paid for, because my time, if everything I had to do was just for that day of, you would never ever have an event. You would never have a wedding. You really wouldn't. It would just be chaos on that day. And for the event professionals out there, I think that what happens is that it's so many people that continue to have that mindset of the client, where they're only pricing, or they're only creating their experience based off of that one day, that one shift, versus incorporating the experience into all of the work that they do. And I think that when you understand that you cannot create an experience solely on the day of, it has to be produced from the moment you go into contract with that client to the end of that event. And when you understand that, then you calculate, like you said, all the hours that it takes to create those moments. And when you do that and you understand that, then you understand your worth. And honestly, it has nothing to do with pricing. It has nothing to do with that at all. It is because if I solely focus on price, you would never be able to afford me. No one would be able to afford me. Only millionaires and billionaires. Because if I charge by the hour, and if I had to calculate how many hours it takes me to produce an event and to plan that event, or to plan and produce a wedding, we are talking hundreds of hours. You know what I mean? And we don't charge clients that fee, because it would be astronomical. So what we do is, you have to understand the value of what we're giving you. So the value is always going to be more than what we put in on that contract, as far as what you're paying us the fee for. So that's what a lot of people are still battling with and not understanding when it comes to worth and value.
Well, here I am talking about 80 to 100 hours, and you're putting in 100. I mean, how many warehouses have you been in picking out linens and making sure the centerpieces are right? And, I had a client one time, and this is when the bell went off for me. I'm just going to make up a number. I was charging a client, let's say, $1,000 for a wedding. And the client wrote back to me, well, that's $250 an hour. That's more than I make as a lawyer. It's not just for those 4 hours. Again, and I just went over the whole thing. When I've done the math, there are times where we do a wedding, and whatever we charge and all the hours we put in, we're making $8.83 an hour. And that's, that I'm not saying that I need to get paid $28 an hour, because there are a lot of hours, but, they're also, I think what they don't get is that Andrew Roby, what he brings is his set of vendors. What he brings is his experience. So hopefully you and I have gotten there. I'm sure we have, where when you mention our services to a couple or to a corporation, they know, okay, if Andrew's recommending it, this is rock solid. We're in lockstep. I don't have to think about that vendor. Andrew, just tell me who to write the check to, because they trust you. So they're getting your experience, your curated, set of vendors getting all of that. And they're also, Andrew, I don't mind saying it publicly, there are some times where, depending on the event and the lane we're traveling, the month of the year, you're able to get discounts for your client that they can't get elsewhere. If someone calls me off of Wedding Wire or The Knot, or I don't really deal with Yelp too much, but when they call, me, there's a price that there's to pay. When they call Andrew Roby, they're entered into a different family. Is what I can say there. So I love the fact that you are willing to push businesses and make them ask themselves the tough questions and all of that. The National Events Council. Yep. Please veil our listeners and our viewers as to what that effort is all about. I think it speaks right into what we just finished, right?
Yeah, so it ties into the whole education piece of two sectors. So the National Events Council primary objective is to focus on corporations like Coca-Cola, Visa, Netflix, Apple, Google, all of these large, corporations that employ hundreds of people that make billions of dollars, millions of dollars annually, but also create hundreds of events throughout the year that fail to actually ensure the people who are servicing their events are diverse. And when I mean diverse, I mean Black, brown, white, Asian, as you know it, but also LGBTQ, those with disabilities, which range in various, sectors. So we want to make sure that all of those organizations are actually making sure that everyone who services their events are diverse, that the supplier diversity channels that they've created are actually working, that the return on investment for the work that they've put in are actually being seen. But we see that right now, 47% of the people who have a supplier diversity channel don't even believe that it's working for their good. So that's a lot of movement that we can make in regards to the National Events Council working on behalf of the event industry. The event industry aren't our stakeholders. They're simply the recipients of the work that we're doing to fight for them, to make sure that they're able to be hired, to have equal rights, to have diversity and inclusion within the workforce, but also making sure that we set standards. Our organization is curating standards for these organizations to actually uphold for their events. We're working with various diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals to go into these organizations and train them, create, processes and programs. So that way it's not only, building and benefiting the event industry, but it's benefiting it across various industries for other organizations and companies that they're hiring for whatever it is that they're hiring. So it's so many facets of this that the National Events Council has started to really help gig workers, to help event professionals that are really trying to maintain their space in this industry, because oftentimes we fail to see how powerful saying no to an organization is that's in this event industry. No can make or break if that company can stay open, if that company can pay their employees, if that company can actually hire employees. By not having a great diversity, equity, and inclusion program, or a program that ensures diversity, equity, and inclusion, is detrimental to those within the event industry and is hindering us from what our white counterparts are experiencing. And that is hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales every year, being able to bring on full-time employees. And when I say employees, I mean W-2, not 1099, type of people. And a lot of our marginalized, business owners are not able to see that. So we're doing the work for them so that way they can.
So thank you for bringing this to this conversation. Here's the thing. Over the past year, we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot change. I don't do the whole politics thing so much, but politically, we've seen a lot change.
Yep.
Socially, we've seen a lot change. But the groups that we've seen it change for are the groups that have emerged in terms of percentages of population and all that. We've seen efforts for Black and brown people.
Yep.
We've seen this right now. We are in women's, excuse me, we just finished Black History Month. We're in Women's Month now. But let's talk about, there are more marginalized communities. The LGBTQ community is, so when you look at minorities, you look at, okay, so you look at Black folks, you look at Hispanic folks, you look at Asian folks, you look at, everybody there. But then you have the LGBTQ community where those folks could be of different colors, which means they fall into a category.
Yep.
Then they fall into the LGBTQ category. And that category somehow on the chart is way over here. Right. And we have to deal with these other communities first, but, is what the popular opinion is.
Yeah.
So how do we include the LGBTQ community even more? I'm glad you said that because I have some conversations on this podcast coming up to address the community and what's happening for the community specifically in Washington, D.C. But so how do we ensure, because let's be honest, it was only during the Obama administration that we could see the LGBTQ community openly get married.
Yep.
I cried on that day. I cried on that day because I said, and look, you helped me with a moment. You helped me with a moment. You don't know this. So this is a world premiere right here. But you and I did a wedding right down on F Street.
Oh yeah. At the National Building Museum.
National Building Museum.
On Labor Day. No, that was Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend several years ago. I think they got married outside.
They got married at Lincoln Memorial.
We were worried about rain, right? Because I know the day before you were sending out an email.
Yep.
And my eyes teared up, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm playing music at the wedding, two gentlemen getting married, and I saw, I don't remember their names, but the smaller of the two gentlemen, I'm welling up now.
This is Reno.
Reno. He was dancing like it didn't matter. And I said, this guy on this day can finally be who he is. Because he could have done that 10 years prior, but it wouldn't have been recognized.
Yeah.
But he was fine. And they had that blue on. That was some sharp blue. One of them was the Florida Gator, right? One of them graduated from the University of Florida.
Yeah.
And that made me so very happy. Why did it take this long?
I don't know. I think that we as a people, regardless of our ethnicity, our background or whatever, I think that we are always fighting to be seen, always fighting to be heard. And we get to the point where when we're fighting, against, and clearly when we're fighting against white people, white supremacy, right? We begin to focus solely on us because that's all we know. That's the hardship. That's the trauma we have dealt with. And it's not to say, although I'm fighting solely for myself, that I'm not fighting with others. We just haven't gotten to the point where we can fight collectively as people to say, hey, my trans, family, they need to be seen. They need to be heard. They are people too. Or my Asians, they need to be seen. They need to be heard. They're people too. We all need to be fighting collectively. And in many ways we are. But when we deal with the many inequalities that we're facing across, race and ethnicity and all these other things, we find ourselves only focusing on ourselves because there's specific, but the intersectionalities are there where we can see how all of us are equally underrepresented, how all of us are equally fighting for justice, for racial justice, within a white America. And I can't really say the world is predominantly white because it's not. It's fact that minorities are the majority when we're looking at a global accountability. And I just think that when we're dealing with, LGBTQ, IAP plus community, that we have to avoid leaving them out of the conversations, leaving them out of the equation, because when we think about, just even Black History Month that just passed, there's so many fighters, so many freedom fighters that were LGBTQ that their stories were not told because a heterosexual male, and specifically at that time, was the person who the community felt should serve as the champion of that particular movement. And so, we have so many people within the LGBTQ community that have done a tremendous amount of work, not just for Blacks, but for Hispanics, for Asians, for Indians, for Jews, for so many, people, including white people, you know what I mean? But sadly, we have white people that do reap the benefits of a lot of these initiatives, affirmative action being one. So, yeah.
Now, all of us in the events business have had to absorb this past year, whereby the events business effectively shut down for a period of time. We all want life as normal, but you too want to see the return of events. But you've also, again, because you don't mind pushing the buttons, you've outlined the ways. I've seen posts from you where you're like, this is going to open up, but is this smart? Do they have a way to mitigate temperature checks and all of this? What happens if one of your guests gets sick at the event and, food prep and all of this? You believe the events industry can come back, but you've outlined what you feel is a safe way. Where do you think we are? What do you think still needs to happen for it to successfully come back and safely?
Yeah, so I still stand by my statement that I don't believe that events will come back at all this year. I don't think that it is safe whatsoever. I know that President Biden did put out a statement saying that, everyone in America will have the ability to have a vaccine by the end of May, which is really great. Although we know that everyone won't get a vaccine, it's not mandatory, etc. But what I see for events is that we are still working in a virtual sphere right now. And to me, that's the only safe method of executing events, moving forward. I think that people are simply not taking advantage of the impact that virtual events can have, i.e. they're not creating experiences virtually. They don't know how to do that. They just don't. And so because they don't, they're like, oh, no, then I don't see virtual as being a valid thing. We had the future of events summit, 2 weeks ago with Event Manager Blog. And from that, their report showed that only 60% of people feel that virtual events are actually worth having. So it's a more than a majority, but you then still have 40% of people that are not doing anything because they're waiting to go back to in-person events. And so because of that mindset, we're in conflict with ourselves. So I do believe that virtual will still remain the key method of doing events until the end of the year, for sure. I do believe that towards the fall of this year, we will see more hybrid events, which is a mixture of in-person people and then also marrying the virtual side and creating, that event experience. For the meantime, if there are any in-person events that are happening in 2021, I believe the safest amounts will be under 100 people. I do believe that weddings will still benefit, from this because of the micro wedding experience. But as it relates to our trade shows, which trade shows mainly have thousands of people, I don't think it's safe, regardless of how big the venue is. I don't think it's safe. But nevertheless, I'm not the law of the land, but I feel like if people are going to move forward with any type of in-person event, that you need to use our medical providers. There's so many pharmacies out there that can provide quick tests, for antibodies for COVID, that every person that shows up to an in-person event should be required. When you get a vaccination, you get a card for it. You can show proof of that. If you get a test, you have proof of that. And I think that all events should require that of people. In addition to still, regardless if you've had a negative COVID test or if you've been vaccinated, that you still should wear masks. You should still practice sanitizing. You should still do temperature checks. You should still make sure that everyone's practicing physical distance of 6 feet or more, and still making sure that you create those environments and not try to overcrowd them because you want to recuperate money that was lost in 2020 and all these kinds of things. I could go on and on and on about this, but ultimately, I just feel like we need to pause. I think that we need to take advantage of the virtual and understand the dynamics of it, and then get ourselves in a position that when we are able to take off the mask and able to go with our lives, because COVID-19 is now a normal thing. Until we get to that point, I think that we just need to continue with what we're doing now and then focus on in person and all that later.
So I'm going to pin you down. Do you agree with me on this one? I don't think virtual events are ever going away in terms of, I think there's I think there's going to be a viable side to our business where I'm going to need to keep this studio and we're going to continue to produce virtual events. Even like you said, if it's in a hybrid format, I think, when you have folks who are invited to events from out of town, well, if I can log on and I can watch the event and still get an experience, especially with seminars and trade shows and that kind of thing. I mean, with trade shows, there are manipulatives. You want to touch stuff and see the car and all of that. But I don't think that we're ever going to say goodbye totally to virtual events. I think there's going to be XYZ company who's having a gala. And I think there's going to be in-person side and a virtual side where you can still buy your ticket, you can still experience the event, but guess what you don't have? The airfare, the hotel stay, you don't have all that. Do you think that's going to be something that we can sustain?
I think that we can sustain it to a certain point, but I don't think it's as sustainable because honestly, we've had the virtual opportunity well before the pandemic. The pandemic only highlighted that we had the option of virtual.
Okay.
But the thing about events is that we love being in the room. That's what it boils down to. If I had a social event or a corporate fundraiser or whatever it is, you can't replicate that experience no matter what you do on virtual. You just cannot replicate that. And that's what people yearn for. If I'm talking about a conference or something like South by Southwest, the reason people go to those events is not because you have these amazing headliners. Yeah, those are great, reasons to come and see these people. But the reason people come to such events is because of the fact that they can network with people and close deals. The reason why we have trade shows is because you can close deals with people right then and there. It is difficult to do that virtually. And so when you have in-person events starting back up, you then ask yourself, am I willing to waste the money on having a virtual component, or am I just going to shelve it like they've been doing it for the past couple of decades because in person is just much more viable than virtual events? So to me, I think that there may be an opportunity, but I don't think it's going to be a big opportunity.
Okay, I hear you. And you know what? I trust what you say. So, so Andrew, I want to wrap up just in a second here, but what's next for Andrew Roby? What can you tell us is down the line for you?
I want to be on TV.
Okay. Wait a minute. I've seen you on Fox 5. I've seen your face now.
So I've been on TV, but I want my own show. So I'll be specific about what I mean. I want my own show, but this is the direction that I'm heading in on my journey. So over the pandemic, I've gotten more into home decor renovations, etc.
Yeah, you have. I've seen some of those, what do you call them? Those time-lapse videos of you setting up Thanksgiving, setting up Christmas. You do that well.
Yeah, thank you. And so I have been doing that. I've actually just started in December of last year. I started Sarah Campbell from Intrigue Designs. I love her. She sent me a message and she was like, Andrew, I think you need to be on TikTok. I think that you'll do really well on TikTok. And I was like, I'm the type of person that I don't care to be on all these social media platforms. I can stick with, the two, and I'm good to go, and so I was like, let me try it out. And so prior to that, I did my, this office, I did my office during the pandemic. I renovated my laundry room. I did all of my bedrooms. I did bathrooms. Like I went all out for home decor because I had nothing but time, and so when I went on TikTok, one of the videos that is currently going on right now is almost at 1 million views, and I am just blown away by that. And all of the comments, since December, I have had thousands of comments, coming in about decor and all that, and that has pushed me into doing decor. So I started up Gilded Glen, which is a home decor company that sells really amazing home furnishings from sofas to bar carts to chandeliers, all that kind of stuff. And I'm loving that. but then I want to get to the point where I'm on a TV show that connects the event side to home entertainment, right?
Okay.
So I want to be able to change how we view parties at home. And it's weird because I started with small parties at home, right? So now I find myself going back to that. But I want to be able to go to someone's home, renovate their homes so that way they can be the ultimate places to entertain and to throw parties, to have backyard weddings and all of these kinds of things. So that's where I'm headed.
All right. I'm a little, I'm going to tell you, I'm a little annoyed now. I didn't know about Gilded Glen.
So we just launched it. We just launched it.
Okay, whatever.
We launched it. We launched it. When did we?
You have my email address. You got my email address. Or maybe, you know what? You can tell on me. You can say, Kurtis, I posted it everywhere. You just didn't look.
No. I have not intertwined it with my event company. Okay. Because it is its own entity, and I don't want to create a conflict, of that. So I can't take, my company's emails and do that. But I can't email my people like you and let me know about it. So that's a good. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. But I definitely will make some sort of announcement about that. I will.
All right. So, Andrew, look, this has been a pleasure. We got to get back down into DC for dinner. We had dinner at, what was it, Georgia Brown's one night?
Georgia Brown's, yeah.
We had dinner there, and that was awesome. But tell people on the 2 platforms you have how they can connect with Andrew Roby.
So my home is at andrewrobyevents.com. From there, you can find me on Facebook, same as Andrew Roby Events. Of course, on Instagram. I'm now on TikTok, so you can find me on those 3 platforms, all under Andrew Roby Events.
You know what? You might be the reason why I get on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. Paula's on TikTok. She's definitely on TikTok. So I'll have to jump out there. Look, I thank you for your time. I ask that you give me a moment to wrap this up. I'll join you backstage in a bit. But ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Roby of Andrew Roby Events. Thanks, Andrew. I'll see you in just a second, fella. Wow. Great segment with Mr. Andrew Roby. Listen, folks, we're just about out of time. I want you to get with me socially at Kurtis Talks. That's Kurtis with a K on Instagram and Facebook, www.kurtistalks.com. And of course, you can email me at kurtisandpaula@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our podcast family, The Kurtis and Paula Show, Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill, and Ramblin' Teachers. Of course, don't forget the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. You'll find our family of podcasts just about anywhere you get your podcast content. Thanks for joining the conversation today. Thank you, Andrew Roby from Andrew Roby Events, for being our guest today. Feel free to spread the word. And as always, thank you, Khadijah. We'll see you next time.
Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis can be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and just about anywhere podcasts can be found.
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.